Hello. Hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3000. Sorry, 4000 and 4030, 30, 34, 35 probably. I'm not really sure about the number. 35 maybe. Yeah, 4035. Today's date is 4th of May 2026. It's been almost like morning at 8:16 a.m. Okay. Alright, let's just jump into the question. Let's go. Okay, question is max length of audio. Okay, what is at least this question and why am I asking this question to myself? I wanted to build an app called My Artifact. Okay, what exactly is this app? Well, while writing a diary, while writing a journal, there is a lot of constraint actually happened. There is a problem actually happened. You can't write the way that you think. The reason is that you are actually thinking much more faster than you're writing. The problem is not in the thinking, the problem is on the writing. We are writing very slow, and we are writing very slow is because of in the writing there is a lot of constraint too. We need a paper, we need a pen, we need a convenience, we need lot of things, spelling mistake, lot of stuff. Okay, so that's why we kind of like a something like a like write very slow. So I thought that instead of kind of like a something writing a diary, what if we could record a diary, audio record a diary? I called this particular process called artifact, like recording diary or recording audio diary. I call that artifact. The stuff that you are kind of like listening or seeing right now is My Artifact episode number 4035, something like that. Okay, yeah. I am doing this thing for almost like 11 year. I am doing this thing every single day, and because of this thing it add so much amount of value inside of me. The person that I am today and the person that I will become tomorrow, it is all because of artifact. Artifact actually shape my personality. Artifact kind of like show me the correct path, that how do I supposed to achieve my goals and things and that and that. It's a kind of like a self reflection process. You are actually talking to yourself right now. I'm talking, there is no one actually here. I'm kind of like a recording, I'm talking with myself. I'm kind of like a connecting with myself. It's a kind of like a self reflection process. Okay, yeah. And like it's really amazing. Okay, yeah. I realize that the amount of value, like basically, what if I could share this technicality to the people, like this artifact technicality? So that's why I'm kind of like a building this application, My Artifact. My application, this artifact, My application is a kind of like a somewhat something like a YouTube. Okay, yeah. In the YouTube platform, you are kind of like a create your video, upload your video, other people see your video. Okay, yeah. In the artifact platform, same. You are kind of like a somebody record your artifact. Okay, yeah. And other people kind of like a listen your artifact. Okay, yeah. There is a one catch. I am kind of like a providing the privacy. Okay, privacy is a very much essential. Because of that key, user will not gonna know who is exactly they are listening to and things and that and that. It's kind of like a give artifact, it's kind of like a give the people for it's kind of like a give the people from artifact to kind of like a give the privacy, freedom, and express to freedom and things and that, and it is essential. Okay, so this is my application. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing right now I'm actually creating this app. Okay, I'm actually using Android Studio to kind of like creating this application. But before I make this thing, I wanted to know all the possible consequences. What will wrong thing will happen? What will right thing will happen? I wanted to know all the possible consequences will gonna happen. So I also like this kind of like a platform is not exist like that. Okay, there is no platform who is kind of like a sharing a audio based platform. There is no platform at all. There is a couple of platform like a Clubhouse is a kind of like a somebody is this thing that ki you could share your audio things and that, but Clubhouse is kind of like a bit more different. It's a kind of like a somebody online meeting kind of like that. uh yeah, so basically I before I wanted to kind of like a develop, and before I wanted to kind of like a like a went public, I wanted to aware of all the possible consequences. So I went to ChatGPT. I tell my idea, this is my idea and things and that, and I kind of like say that key I wanted to know all the possible consequences. I wanted to know aware of everything. So suggest me at least like 100 question. ChatGPT suggests me hundreds of question. By the way, all those questions actually in the mobile phone. It's on document, but while recording I can't do this thing. So that's why I wrote the question in here. This is the question. By the way, this is a new book that I'm reading. It's not new book. I'm reading for almost like a month. I read almost like a half of the book. Yeah, almost half ne, like little bit, almost like a 55 to 56 percentage. Okay, yeah, like a this much I read, this much remaining. Okay, yeah. So yes, really good book, by the way. Highly recommend to you to read this book. Okay. So, so let's just jump into the question. Okay, yeah. So, question is, what is the max length of audio? Okay, yeah. Max length of audio means like that, ki like when the user will kind of like hit the record, how much time, like what is actually the length of the artifact? Well, basically, it's this thing that ki I am actually recording artifact for past almost like 11 year, and I'm recording almost like a averagely, like right now my kind of like somebody recording things is extended. Okay, yeah. Like when I started early, like when I started recording artifact, I was I was not able to be record more than 2-3 minute or 5 minute. That's it. Okay, and the reason is that ki I don't really have any reason to talk. Okay, yeah. Like what do I supposed to say? Like hello, this is my artifact episode number this. Today this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. That's it. And entire artifact will gonna done within a kind of like a somebody just couple of minutes. Okay, yeah. And also listening that artifact is kind of like a bit boring too. It's nothing really interesting. Okay, yeah. But almost like a beginning of almost like a beginning kind of like a somebody 1-2 year are just kind of like a somebody just like less than a 5 minute. By the way, if you are kind of like looking at those artifact, I didn't really upload those artifact on YouTube platform. Why? Is because of that it's too much, and if I wanted to upload those artifact, it kind of like give me too much hassle. Oh yeah. Like hassle means what? Like basically is this thing, let me tell you one thing. Till now I uploaded almost like a 4,000 artifact on YouTube platform. Okay, yeah. But there are so many kind of like a some artifact, almost like a maybe 500 plus artifact that are kind of like a less than 5 minute. Okay, yeah. And there is no point to upload those artifacts because like there is nothing really at all. Just I was kind of like also mention and things and that. So basically is this thing, at the beginning you don't know what do we supposed to be talking the artifact. Okay, yeah. And like basically what is actually happened throughout the day, there is nothing really interesting way to kind of like tell and things and that. So basically there is, yeah. Okay. But almost like I started a continue, like basically is this thing that na ki like when artifact is kind of like became more interesting. Like let me tell you one thing. I started in 2015, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay. uh 18, 19, yeah. Okay, so basically it's this thing that key from first 4 year I haven't really asked any kind of like a simple question. In 2019 I started asking question to myself in the artifact. Okay, yeah, what exactly is this question? So the question is a kind of like a somebody is just saying give the direction to the artifact, that what do I supposed to be talk about. Okay, yeah, and that direction is a very much essential, because when you record the artifact, what do you want it to talk? There is nothing really there is nothing really kind of like a something to talk. Okay, yeah, like basically is this thing na, everyday life nothing really happened. Like basically if I'm thinking that na ki what is exactly happened throughout the day and things and that, then probably nothing. Yeah, it's just like a typical Tuesday and that's it. Okay, there's nothing really at all. Okay, so that's what I'm kind of like a realize that ki let's make artifact episode a little bit interesting. Okay, yeah, so I was started asking question to myself. Okay, yeah, so basically is this thing in 2019, at that time there is a kind of like a Facebook post, maybe I'm not really sure about that, but like I don't know, there is a Facebook feature, I'm not really sure about this particular thing, is that key uh, basically if you wanted to connect more with your audience you have to give those answer. Okay, yeah, so almost like a Facebook ask almost like a maybe 200 question. Okay, yeah, regarding about like a do you like mountain or beach, do you like kind of like a something that key going to the clubhouse or kind of like a peaceful mind, whatever it is. Okay, it's a kind of like a things that na ki Facebook try to connect the creator to the audience much more better, so it's a kind of like they add this kind of like a things. I don't know, yeah, so they have almost like almost 200 questions, more than that probably. Okay, yeah, and these questions are very much interesting. Okay, yeah, very much interesting, and I wanted to give the answer. So I thought that key, but how do I supposed to give the answer in Facebook? It doesn't really make sense at all. I don't want to. I decided that key like I have to give this answer in artifact. So I kind of like took the screenshot of almost like a 2000s of artifact. I still have those kind of like I still have those kind of like a screenshot. I uploaded on Google Photos. Okay, and basically is this thing, and I started asking almost like those 200 question. Okay, yeah, and when I did that thing my artifact is became more interesting. I started doing this thing in 2019. Before that I was just hit the record and just whatever inside of my head I just kind of like blunt it out. Okay, but when I was kind of like asking question, it gives me direction. Okay, yeah, and when it gives me direction my length of artifact is also increased too. Oh yeah, like before that I was just recording maybe like like basically 5 minute or 10 minute. Okay, there is nothing really at all. Okay, yeah, but when I kind of like give the answer, when I started to kind of like give the answer, it's became more interesting. Okay, yeah, it's a kind it's a kind of like a thing that na ki when you record the artifact you feel really good. Why? Because of you are kind of like giving you freedom to express your thoughts and things and that. Okay, yeah, but what if that freedom doesn't really have any direction? Then you just kind of like go anywhere at all. Like this is what kind of question is a kind of like give the direction. Like when I ask question to myself I get my artifact as a direction that what is actually my opinion about. Like basically this question na, like basically the question is actually about what is actually max length of the artifact. Okay, yeah, so I'm kind of like giving the kind of like somebody the opinion, my experience and things and that regarding about how it should supposed to be the max length of the artifact and things and that. So question is actually kind of like a give the direction. Oh yeah, and when it give the direction there is a lot more things to talk. Okay, and when there is a lot more things to talk the length of the artifact is kind of like a bit more increase. Also artifact is also became interesting to listen. Okay, yeah, it is also interesting to listen to. So that's why I kind of like realize that ki I have to be asked question. Okay, so basically is this thing, before that my length was maybe length of artifact would be 10 minutes. If I'm kind of like making my artifact a little bit productive, like talking about something, it might go kind of like somebody half an hour or maybe 45 minutes. Okay, but average length would be just 10 minutes. Okay, yeah, that's it. But when I ask question, my average length from kind of like a 10 minute to went to 30 minute, literally 30 minute. Okay, yeah, like 30 minute I'm kind of like a talking, like right now I'm kind of like a talking for almost like a 15 minute. Okay, yeah. So it is all because of the kind of like a give the direction question. Okay, yeah. So basically I started asking question, and I not only kind of like a love to record artifact, I also love to listen artifact too. Okay, yeah. And it kind of like gives me a lot of kind of like some information. I understand myself more and understand the surrounding more and things and that. Okay, yeah. So I started kind of like assembly talking for almost like a half an hour, and this is kind of like assembly my kind of like assembly the my average length of recording artifact, half an hour. Okay, but sometime when there is a topic that I really wanted to talk, and the kind of like subject is kind of like a far much more bigger to express opinion and things and that. So sometime it went to 45 minute to 1 hour. Okay, sometimes 1.2 hour. Okay, 1.5 an hour. So I'm been continuously talking for almost like a 1.2 hour and things and that. And this is happened. This actually happened. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing that key I am a kind of like a simply building this application, and people will kind of like record the artifact. So I have to be decide that what is exactly max length of artifact. Okay, yeah. I cannot choose unlimited. Why? um, because of that na, ki there is a lot of thing actually happen. Okay, so let me tell you one thing. Like this is I'm talking about just a kind of like a user point of perspective, because I was the user. But when I'm kind of like a behind that app, there is a lot of processing actually happen on that artifact. Okay, yeah. So let's just say the particular person who is a kind of like a something is this thing that key, like I don't want to like let user to stop record, like basically not to talk. Okay, but kind of like simply give the freedom, like basically is this thing. Let me tell you one thing what exactly happened. The artifact, the whatever the people will kind of like record the artifact, there is a lot of process actually happen. First of all, that whatever the particular person says, that entire speech converted into the text. Okay, this process. Second process, voice modulation. Okay, yeah, if the user wanted to kind of like a private or things and that they would enable the voice modulation, and there is a voice modulation actually happening. Okay, yeah. Then after that, that audio form is a kind of like a something that key upload and things. There is a lot of process actually happen, things and that. Okay, yeah. Bigger the length, bigger the processing, bigger time to upload, and also is this thing that key, yeah. So I realized that ki I should supposed to be kind of like a simply at least like a 1 hour of max length. Okay, yeah. Like a 1 hour you could record. Okay, yeah. Then it automatically kind of like a simply stop. Okay, yeah. Or it kind of like a give the notification that ki like you are kind of like a simply crossing 1 hour or kind of like a things. Stop it, or maybe kind of like a simply record another artifact. Okay, yeah. Like it's not like that I'm kind of like a stopping user. It's just like that key, if the user wanted to continue, just stop this, save this artifact, and kind of like a start new and kind of like a continue. Okay, yeah. 1 hour of kind of like a max length would be much more better, so that user will kind of like express their thoughts very clearly. And from technical point of perspective, I don't really get that much hassle. Okay, yeah. Technical point of perspective, that you might or not understand how much problem is that technical point of perspective. um, I am kind of like a simply converting my artifact into the subtitle, sorry, converted into subtitle into the text. Okay, yeah. And there are a lot of hassle, like basically is this thing na. Okay, sometime I try to talk for almost like a, let's just say 45 minutes. Okay, yeah. So 45 minutes I've been talking. So there is a lot of text. Okay, with the timestamp and things and that. And then I kind of like started converting that kind of like a subtitle into the text. The context window for kind of like AI to convert this thing, it is too much. Okay, yeah. uh, I don't know. At this kind of like a thing, I have to be kind of like a thinking that ki live transcription would be much more better. But this is also kind of like another problem too, because the live transcription, it's kind of like a look really good. Okay, yeah. But in the long run it's not really possible, because when the people are kind of like simply recording artifact, they are not looking at the transcription and things, they are kind of like recording things. I'm kind of like providing the transcription, but at the end of the artifact, not kind of like a fully live transcription is not really possible, because processing is a kind of like a too much. Okay, there are a lot of things. I'm not really sure about all the technicality regarding about what kind of like a things and that. But till now what I realized that ki 1 hour is a kind of like a max length of artifact. Okay, yeah, 1 hour. After the 1 hour, artifact will gonna stop. Okay, yeah. This is a kind of like a things that I am kind of like a somebody add the feature. Okay, to kind of like a making sure. But another thing is that na dude, if I'm kind of like a somebody making user to kind of like a record artifact for almost like a 1 hour, does people will kind of like a listen that artifact for 1 hour? That's a really good question. Okay, the important is that ki we are entering in such a world where kind of like a simply attention span of human are almost like a less than 30 second, like not 30, 45 something second. Okay, in today's point of perspective, in the future it might goes very less. Okay, what is that attention span? Attention span means like that average user kind of like a simply focus on one thing for at least like a 45 second. In the 45 second, if the video kind of like a bit more interesting, then user will kind of like a watch. In the 45 second, if the video is not actually interesting, then people will kind of like a skip out. This is what kind of like an intro is actually happened. Specifically I'm talking about in a video point of perspective. Okay, yeah, that is kind of like a some beginning time, beginning couple of seconds, beginning 30 seconds is kind of like a far more essential for kind of like a some every content creation, for YouTube videos, for shorts and things like that. And that beginning kind of like a some second is very much essential. Okay, yeah. So intention span is kind of like a getting very less. So if I'm kind of like a thinking that the most of the people will kind of like a listen the artifact, their intention span is kind of like a simply very less than minute, then in that moment when the user will kind of like a record the artifact for 1 hour, does people will kind of like a listen? Well, like there is a kind of like a things that I wanted to clarify again. Okay, yeah, I want my user to record artifact more than listen artifact, because when you listen the artifact, it does not add that much amount of value, or the whatever the value that it add, it kind of like a simply from somebody that you listen. And is that wrong? Well, it's not right either too, because it's not your opinion. When you record the artifact, you create your own opinion, and when you create your own opinion, more likely that you follow that opinion might be kind of like a somewhat something really good. Like basically is this thing that key, when you record an artifact regarding about how benefit when you kind of like a wake up in early, so when you record the artifact, when you talk about this particular stuff, more likely it actually happened that you might gonna wake up early in the morning. Okay, like basically our action, whatever the kind of like we speaks resonate with our action. Okay, yeah. If I wanted to kind of like go to the kind of like a gym, or kind of like do the running or things and that, it does add value. It kind of like a thing is that it just kind of like help us to kind of like do this thing. Okay, it push us to kind of like do the things because I said this thing in artifact. Okay, yeah. So basically I want my user to kind of like record artifact more instead of listen artifact. Okay, this is kind of like a things. Okay, because it is very much essential. But there is another problem actually arise that key most of the earning that I will gonna earn from the advertisement, and advertisement is actually happen by when the people will kind of like listen, because when the people will gonna listen, I could put the advertisement. Okay, and from that I could earn money. So if the less user are kind of like a listening artifact, then I would be kind of like earning less amount of money, right? Because I'm not earning money more when the people will kind of like a recording artifact, right? Well, that is true. That is true. Regarding about how do I supposed to be earn money, or how do I supposed to monetization, I will figure it out later. Okay, yeah. Like basically there are multiple ways to kind of like earn money, multiple ways to kind of like add the monetization and things and that. I do have a plan for that. Okay, but I'm not gonna talk about this thing at the moment. Basically, this thing now, I want that key user should supposed to be like basically this thing now. When I record the artifact, I wanted to be kind of like a free. I wanted to record. Like basically, I recorded almost like a 4,000 artifact. I haven't been listened those artifact. Like literally maybe one or two or things and that. Because my most of the kind of like a simply focus on recording artifact because it does add value in me when I record the artifact. Listening artifact, it just yeah, it doesn't really add that much amount. Like the amount of value that you add when you record the artifact, not listen artifact. This is a kind of like a thing. That's why I am kind of like I'm not kind of like a forcing user to record artifact, but still, if you wanted to kind of like a utilize the full potential, if you wanted to add the kind of like a full value from the artifact, you have to record the artifact. That's the kind of like a things. When you record the artifact, you kind of like get that value inside your head, and you are more likely towards taking the action more. Okay, so that's what I want. Okay, yeah. So regarding about listening, okay, I do have to understand it's not really that not every person will kind of like somebody record artifacts. Some people will kind of like listen those things. I have to give the answer that does people will kind of like listen those things for longer period of time. Well, first of all is that my focus is for the user to record artifact more. That is the one thing. Now basically, does people will kind of like listen those artifact? Well, basically is this thing, it depend on them. It depend on kind of like what they are kind of like talking. It depend on kind of like some things that key basically is this thing, does they resonate with this thing or not? Because let me tell you one thing now, there is no platform are actually available to kind of like sharing the very internal detail of the human things and that like what is actually been actually happened. Like basically is this thing now, Instagram, you are not actually connect with the creator that much. Why? Because of that there is a kind of like a layer, a visual layer in between us, that this particular person is a kind of like a much more successful because he's a kind of like uploading photos of travel trips and whatnot. So there is a kind of like a gap between the resonate, does not connect with both of the things. But artifact is not. Artifact is a kind of like a self-reflection process. The person that been through situation, you also understand that I also kind of like going through the same situation, more likely towards the resonate with that thing. And if such thing they both connected, they will kind of like simply listen those artifact probably. Yeah, but it's just think that na ki, like basically this thing, the one thing I could do is that making artifact more interesting to record artifact, so that people will kind of like stay and kind of like listen. It's not really that I'm supposed to be reduce the length of the artifact. It's not really good thing. I have to make sure that kind of like make sure the artifact would kind of like a little bit interesting. But try to figure it out. Interesting means what? This is a kind of like another question. Like basically is this thing, like hearing someone's sex story would be very much interesting. So basically, does people will kind of like a record artifact regarding about sex story? No, that is completely wrong. Because when the people are kind of like talking about the sex story, it is completely wrong. I am making that user as a criminal, because as I mentioned, when you record the artifact, when you talk about this thing, you are kind of like a more likely taking towards the action. So if you are talking about the sex multiple times, then probably you are more likely towards the doing the sex thing more, even if you get consent or not. And when you're not getting consent, then probably okay. So do you understand? It's a kind of like a thing that na ki it's depend on who you are. You have a knife, or you have a pencil. Sorry, you have a pencil that you could draw the beautiful painting. Okay, or you could utilize that pencil to stab somebody, to kill someone. It's artifact is kind of like that. Okay, so that's what I like. Basically, I wanted to make it interesting, but kind of like somebody make sure that interesting value, it should supposed to add value in their life, not to kind of like a downgrade their life. Okay, this is kind of like a thing. Oh, so this is what I'm thinking. Okay, yeah. 1 hour is the max length of the artifact. Thank you.